You see, men absolutely crave affection, just like women do. But here's the part no one tells you. Affection only truly lands when it feels earned. When a man feels like your affection is a response to who he is, and not just something you give freely because you're trying to keep him interested, that's when it hits him differently. That's when he values it. That's when it matters. And I know this can sound a little controversial because we're taught to be loving, to give freely, to not play games. But I'm not talking about withholding affection or playing hard to get. I'm talking about the intention behind it. There's a massive difference between affection that comes from inspiration and affection that comes from insecurity. When affection becomes something you hand out just to be liked or to fill a silence or to smooth over discomfort, it loses its magic. It becomes expected, not appreciated. Think about it. When someone gives you a compliment that you know they give to everyone, it doesn't mean much, does it? But when someone pays you a compliment that's clearly based on a deep observation of who you are, it lands, it stays with you, it feels earned. It's the same with affection. When a man senses that your warmth, your touch, your smile, your caring words are all rooted in how he's made you feel through his actions, his consistency, his presence, then your affection feels like a gift, not a given. The problem is, a lot of people start relationships from a place of fear of losing someone, fear of not being enough. And in that fear, they try to overcompensate by giving more attention, more praise, more affection, thinking that if they just give enough, the other person will stay. But that's not how it works, because affection that comes from fear doesn't create connection, it creates imbalance. When you give affection indiscriminately, before someone has shown up emotionally, before they've made you feel seen, before they've earned your trust, it doesn't make them value you more. It makes them question your standards. It makes them wonder, why is she giving this to me so easily? What has she seen in me that I haven't even shown yet? And that subtle shift, that quiet doubt, can change everything. Because the more he doubts whether your affection is based on him, the less he trusts it. And the less he trusts it, the less he cherishes it. Now here's the beautiful part. When you're coming from a place of self-worth, when you know your value, you don't need to flood someone with affection in order to earn their interest. You allow it to build naturally. You let someone show up for you before you fully open up to them. You match their effort. And that doesn't make you cold or closed off. It makes your affection meaningful. It makes it something he looks forward to, something he wants to earn. There's nothing more powerful than a man who knows that when you look at him with love in your eyes, when you touch his arm, when you say something kind or sweet, it's because he made you feel something real. Not because you're trying to impress him, not because you're trying to win him, but because you feel genuinely inspired in that moment. That's the kind of affection that reaches a man's core. Let me be clear. This doesn't mean you hold back your warmth as a way to manipulate. It means you stay connected to your feelings. You stay honest with yourself. You ask, what has he done to deserve this part of me? Has he shown me that he sees me, that he listens, that he's emotionally present, that he wants to invest? When the answer is yes, your affection flows naturally. It becomes a reward for the connection he's created, not a strategy to create it. And that's the key. Men want to feel like your affection is a response, not a currency, not a tool to secure them, not a routine behavior, but a genuine reaction to what they've brought into your life. That's when they light up. That's when they step up. They start giving more, not because you pushed, but because they feel seen, appreciated, and motivated to keep showing up that way. And ironically, when you start doing this, when you stop giving affection out of habit and start giving it out of alignment, you become even more attractive. Because men aren't just looking for someone who's kind or loving. They're looking for someone whose kindness means something. Someone whose love is rare, intentional, valuable. That's the kind of affection a man doesn't want to lose. That's the kind of affection he'll crave. So if you've ever felt like you're giving so much but getting so little back, take a step back and ask, am I giving affection from a place of inspiration or from a place of fear? Am I rewarding effort or just trying to keep him interested? Because the moment you start making your affection conditional on emotional investment, everything changes. You'll find yourself feeling safer, more grounded, less anxious, because you're no longer giving parts of yourself away for free. You're giving them to someone who's earned them. And in that, your affection becomes your power. It becomes the thing he cherishes, the thing he wants to protect, the thing he works for. And that's when affection truly becomes love. Not just a gesture, but a reflection of something real. You know, one of the biggest mistakes I see people making in relationships, especially early on, is giving too much too soon in an effort to be liked. And I get it. You meet someone you're really attracted to. You feel that spark, and everything in you wants to show them just how amazing you are. So you start giving. You make yourself emotionally available. You shower them with attention. You compliment them constantly. And maybe you even start doing little favors just to prove you're thoughtful. And when they have a need, you're the first one to offer help. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with being generous. In fact, generosity is beautiful when it comes from a place of abundance. But when it comes from a place of fear, fear of not being enough, fear of losing someone before they truly choose you, that's when it becomes a problem. Because what happens when you overgive too early is that the dynamic becomes unbalanced. And whether we realize it or not, people start to value what they invest in. That includes men. When someone feels like they haven't had to do anything to earn your affection, they subconsciously begin to devalue it. It's not that they're bad people. It's human psychology. We are wired to appreciate what we put effort into. So if you're always the one making the plans, always the one initiating contact, always the one checking in, always the one expressing interest, then what's he actually doing? What's he bringing to the table? Where's his sense of contribution? And most importantly, what reason does he have to appreciate your affection when he hasn't had to work for it? You see, a relationship is not about constantly proving yourself to the other person. It's about co-creating something meaningful together. When you give too soon, you don't give the other person the opportunity to step up and show you what they're capable of. You rob them of the chance to pursue you. And pursuit is essential, especially in the beginning. Now, let me be clear. This isn't about playing games. It's not about withholding affection to manipulate someone into liking you more. It's about pacing the relationship in a way that allows you to assess who they are, what they're willing to invest, and whether they're emotionally available in the first place. So many people confuse chemistry with commitment. They feel sparks and think that's enough. But chemistry doesn't build a relationship. Investment does. And that investment needs to go both ways. Affection is powerful, but it becomes more powerful when it's a response to effort, not a reward for mere presence. You're not a vending machine where someone puts in minimal effort and gets maximum love in return. That's not a relationship. That's a performance. And performances are exhausting. The goal here isn't to play hard to get. It's to be someone worth getting, someone who does. Just give love to anyone who shows up with a smile and a bit of charm. Someone who gives affection when it's earned through consistent effort, respect, and care. Someone who understands that their love is a privilege, not a given. When a man sees that your affection isn't handed out to fill a void or win validation, but is something that flows naturally in response to how he shows up for you, he values it more. It becomes meaningful to him. It becomes something he wants to earn. Think of it like this. If you go to a fancy restaurant and the chef just brings you food the moment you sit down without asking what you like or making you wait, without even making you place an order, sure, it might seem nice at first. But part of what makes that meal feel so luxurious is the process, the anticipation, the service, the care that goes into crafting something tailored for you. The same goes for relationships. Affection means more when it's intentional, not impulsive. And here's the beauty of it. When you hold yourself to that standard, when you show that you don't overgive just to be liked, you actually attract people who want to step up. You filter out those who are only there for convenience, the ones who are looking for someone to make them feel good without doing any of the emotional heavy lifting. And in their place, you create space for someone who's ready to build something real. That kind of connection where two people are equally invested, where affection is given in response to genuine emotional effort, that's what creates depth. That's what builds trust. That's what keeps the spark alive long after the initial chemistry fades. So if you find yourself constantly giving and wondering why you're not being met halfway, take a step back, not to punish, not to withdraw love, but to observe, to see what happens when you create space. Will he move toward you? Will he initiate? Will he ask how you're doing, how he can support you? Because here's the truth. The person who's genuinely interested in you will want to invoke, they'll want to make you feel seen. And when they do that, your affection becomes something that reinforces connection, not something you hand out to create it. You deserve to be loved, not for how much you give, but for who you are. And the right person will recognize that your affection is a gift, one they're grateful to receive, not entitled. So don't be afraid to slow down, to let someone show you who they are before you show them all of your heart. Give, but give with awareness. Let them rise to meet you, because the love that lasts isn't the one you chase. It's the one you allow to unfold with someone who chooses you just as much as you choose them. Let me tell you something that shifts everything in a relationship, especially when it comes to how a man experiences affection. Do you want to know when a man truly craves your affection? It's not just when you're beautiful. It's not just when you're kind. It's when he sees that your affection is paired with standards. That's when it becomes something he values, something he respects, something he wants more of. Affection without standards is like giving someone the vehicle before they've even bought a ticket. If someone gets you all, your warmth, your softness, your energy, without having to step up, without having to show up in a real way, then what incentive is there to be better? Where's the meaning in it? We fall into this trap sometimes where we think that if we just give more, love harder, prove how affectionate and loyal we are, the other person will see our worth and stay. But it doesn't work like that. When someone receives love without any boundaries, they stop valuing that love. It starts to feel like background noise. Comfortable, sure, but not exciting, not inspiring, not special. Now, I'm not saying play games. I'm not saying withhold affection to manipulate someone into chasing you. That's not love either. That's control. What I am saying is this: when your affection comes from a place of real choice, not fear, when it's rooted in self-worth instead of insecurity, it hits differently, because it's not about needing him to validate you. It's about choosing to give your affection to someone who earns it through his consistency, his respect, his emotional investment. Think about it. If someone shows up inconsistently, if they take you for granted, disappear for days, avoid meaningful conversations, and yet you still shower them with affection, what message are you sending? You're saying, you don't need to do much for me to love you. And that might feel like unconditional love to you, but to him it registers as, I don't really need to try. Men crave affection from women who know what they deserve, not because it makes them work harder, although often it does, but because it shows them that this woman isn't just looking for someone to fill a space. She's looking for something real, something reciprocal, something with integrity. A man will lean into that. He'll feel the difference between affection that's freely given to anyone who shows up and affection that's given to him because he's earned it through being real, consistent, and emotionally available. And when he earns it, it becomes rare. It becomes something he doesn't want to lose. The most powerful kind of affection is the kind that says, I want you, but I don't need you. I care about you, but I care about me too. I love deeply, but only when it's safe to do so. I give freely, but not recklessly. That balance, that energy is magnetic. It doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means having the courage to say, I love spending time with you, but I also need to feel respected. I want to be close to you, but not at the cost of my own peace. I'm affectionate with people who pour into me, not just those who drain me. That kind of clarity, spoken with kindness, not anger, creates emotional safety. It tells the other person, if you show up, I'll show up too. If you invest, I'll meet you there. But if you disappear, you'll feel my absence, not my death. And here's the truth that most people won't tell you. Affection, when it's too easy to get, loses its emotional gravity. But when it's shared between two people who choose each other over and over again, who hold themselves to a higher standard, it becomes a source of strength, not just comfort. When a man feels your affection and knows it's backed by real standards, it elevates him. He becomes more aware of how he shows up. He starts to ask himself, am I being the kind of person who deserves this love? Because deep down, we all want to feel like we earned something worth keeping. So if you've ever felt like you're giving so much but not receiving the same in return, ask yourself this. Am I pairing my love with standards? Am I showing someone that my heart is open but not wide open to just anyone who knocks? When your affection is wrapped in self-respect, it becomes a gift, a powerful, rare, meaningful gift. And that's the kind of affection that men don't just crave, they cherish. You know, one of the biggest misconceptions about men is that they don't want emotional connection, that they're all about space, logic, and being left alone to figure things out. But let me tell you something real. Men crave intimacy just as much as anyone else. They want to be seen. They want to be understood. But here's the key. They only open up in spaces where it feels safe to do so. And that safety is built not through pressure, but through emotional maturity. It's built through vulnerability, not neediness. See, there's a subtle difference between being emotionally open and being emotionally dependent. And this is where so many people get tripped up. Vulnerability is saying, this is how I feel, without expecting someone to fix it or make it better. It's about sharing what's real without making it their job to carry it for you. That kind of openness, that's magnetic. It draws someone in because it feels honest, confident, and human. But neediness is when your happiness becomes someone else's responsibility. It's when you say, if you don't call me tonight, I won't feel okay. Or if you don't reassure me every day, I'll start doubting how you feel. And here's the truth. Even the most loving, caring, emotionally available man will pull away from that. Not because he doesn't care, but because the weight of being someone's emotional life support is exhausting. It's unsustainable. Think of it this way. When someone is vulnerable, they invite you in. When someone is needy, they demand you stay. The first creates connection. The second creates pressure. And pressure kills attraction. Now, when you're emotionally healthy, your vulnerability sounds like, I love spending time with you. I miss you when we don't talk, but I also understand you're busy and have your own life. That tells a man you value him, but you don't need him to prop you up. That makes him want to step closer because it feels good to be chosen, not required. And men want to feel chosen. They want to feel like you desire them, not that you need them, just to function. There's something incredibly attractive about a woman who can share her heart and still stand on her own. A woman who says, here's what I feel, without handing over control of her emotions. It's in that balance where you're open but grounded that men feel most safe. Because let's face it, men are often raised to bottle up emotions, to man up, to not talk about what's going on underneath. So when you create a space where emotions are welcomed but not weaponized, that's powerful. When you say, it's okay to feel that way, I'm here, but I'm not going to smother you, that's when his guard starts to drop. That's when he starts to see you not just as someone he likes, but as someone he can truly trust. And trust is what unlocks emotional connection in men. Not control, not chasing, not proving how much you care. Trust is built through moments where you show, I'm here because I want to be, not because I have to be. And I'll let you be you while I continue to be me. That's when affection starts flowing freely. That's when he starts reaching out, checking in, holding your hand a little tighter, not because you asked, but because he feels to. But let me be clear, this doesn't mean hiding your needs. It's not about pretending to be super independent and unbothered. It's about expressing your needs in a way that reflects confidence, not fear. Instead of saying, why didn't you call me back? You say, I really enjoy hearing from you. It makes me feel closer to you. Same message, completely different energy. One invites love. The other demands it. So when you feel that urge to close the gap, to chase, to overexpress just to get a response, pause. Ask yourself, am I coming from a place of grounded vulnerability, or am I seeking reassurance because I don't feel enough on my own? That one question can change everything. Because when you start operating from a place of inner certainty, your interactions shift. You're no longer grasping for affection. You're attracting it. And the truth is, the kind of man you actually want, the emotionally available, mature, grounded man, isn't drawn to neediness. He's drawn to someone who can hold space for emotions without losing herself in them. Someone who can cry, laugh, share, and still own her life. That's the kind of woman who doesn't just catch his attention, she holds it. So if you want a man to crave affection with you, don't try to prove how lovable you are by giving too much too fast. Don't try to guilt him into closeness. Instead, be the person who can say, this is how I feel. I'd love for you to meet me there, but I'll still be okay if you don't. That energy, that's irresistible. That's what makes love feel like freedom, not a trap. Because the truth is, men crave affection, but only if it comes from a place of strength. You know, a lot of people talk about affection like it's this blanket concept, just something you give to someone to show you care. But real affection, it's a little more nuanced than that, especially when we're talking about two people trying to build a lasting connection. And one of the biggest mistakes I see is when people forget that affection doesn't land the same for everyone. It's not just about giving, it's about how you give, and even more importantly, how it's received. Men are often painted as emotionally distant or less in need of affection. But that's a myth. Men crave affection just as deeply. The difference is they often don't know how to ask for it. They've been conditioned not to. So when you're in a relationship with a man, what really matters is whether the affection you're giving is actually reaching him in a way he understands. And that's when knowing his love language becomes a game changer. Maybe he feels love through physical touch, like a spontaneous hug from behind, or just resting your head on his shoulder while watching a movie. Or maybe it's words of affirmation. He lights up when you say, I'm proud of you, or I appreciate the way you handled that. For some men, it's acts of service. When you go out of your way to support him without him asking, or quality time, your undivided attention when you put the phone down and just be with him. And for others, it's gifts. Not expensive things, but thoughtful little tokens that say, I was thinking of you. Now here's where it gets tricky. A lot of people think, well, I'm showing love. I'm giving affection. Why doesn't he feel it? Because you're probably giving it in your language, not his. And that's no one's fault. We all naturally give love the way we like to receive it. If you feel loved when someone spends time with you, you'll probably try to give your partner more of your time. But if his language is physical touch, that well-intentioned effort might not register the way you want it to. This is why it's so important to listen, to observe, to learn. Pay attention to how he reacts when you do certain things. When does he soften? When does he seem more connected? That's when you're hitting the right note. And when you start to consistently speak his language, affection stops feeling like something you're doing. It becomes a flow, a rhythm that builds emotional safety and intimacy. But let me be absolutely clear here. This doesn't mean you become a people pleaser. It doesn't mean you abandon your own needs just to keep him happy. In fact, the fastest way to lose connection is to start overextending yourself in a way that leaves you feeling unseen or unmet. Because affection isn't sustainable when it's one-sided. You matter in this equation just as much. Your love language matters. Your emotional needs matter. You can learn his way of receiving affection, yes, but he also has to learn yours. That's where the real beauty begins. When two people are consciously trying to understand and fulfill each other, that's where it becomes a partnership, not just a performance. So many relationships become unbalanced because one person is doing all the emotional heavy lifting. And at first that might feel like love, like you're just giving and being generous. But over time, it breeds resentment. Because what you're really saying is, I'll meet your needs, and I hope, maybe, you'll notice and meet mine too. That's a passive hope. And hope is not a strategy. You have to communicate. You have to speak up. If you feel neglected, say so. If you need more affection in your own language, express it clearly without blame. Give him the opportunity to rise to the occasion. Don't just assume he knows, or worse, test him to see if he figures it out. That's not how healthy intimacy works. There's something incredibly powerful about saying, I love when you do this, or it means a lot to me when you say that. It's not weak, it's not needy, it's clear, and clarity is one of the most attractive traits in a relationship. Because when someone knows how to love you, and more importantly, knows that loving you well matters, they're far more likely to step into that role. Now, when you both start doing this, when you speak his language and he learns to speak yours, you create a space where affection becomes effortless. It's no longer about constantly trying to make each other feel something. It's about deepening the connection that's already there. And let me tell you something. When a man feels like you truly see him, like you're giving affection in a way that makes him feel understood and safe, he becomes more emotionally generous too. He wants to give back. He wants to show up for you. Because now, affection is not just a gift you're handing out, it's a shared experience. One where you both feel fed, where one's starving emotionally, hoping the other will finally figure it out. So yes, men crave affection, but the kind of affection that reaches their heart. And that only happens when you make the effort to speak in a way they can hear without losing your own voice in the process. That's how affection becomes connection. You know, we talk a lot about confidence, attraction, chemistry, but let's talk about something that runs much deeper, something that actually forms the foundation of all of those things. It's the feeling of safety. And when I say that, I don't mean just physical safety. I mean emotional safety. Because for a man to truly crave affection, to open up, to give affection back, he has to feel like he's in a space where he can actually be seen, where he can breathe, where he doesn't have to perform. The truth is, most men are walking around with armor on. Society has told them that vulnerability is weakness, that showing too much emotion is unattractive, that being soft somehow makes them less masculine. So they get really good at hiding, at appearing confident while being scared, at being funny while feeling lonely, at being successful while starving for intimacy. And the only time that armor comes off is when he feels like he won't be judged, criticized, or fixed for showing who he really is. Now here's where it gets interesting. Women often say, why won't he open up to me? Or why does he seem emotionally distant? And sometimes the answer isn't that he doesn't have emotions, it's that he doesn't yet feel it's safe to show them. And safety, real emotional safety, doesn't come from big romantic gestures or dramatic confessions. It comes from the little moments, from how you respond when he admits he's struggling, from whether you listen without interrupting, from whether you allow silence without rushing to fill it, from whether you can hear his doubts without trying to fix him. Men don't always articulate it, but when they find that rare person who sees them, not the version they're trying to project, but the real them, that's when affection becomes effortless. That's when he wants to give, when he wants to be close. Because now being close doesn't feel risky, it feels grounding. Affection is a deeply vulnerable act. Whether it's a touch, a word, a glance, it's saying, I trust you with a part of me. And no one, man or woman, does that consistently unless they feel emotionally held. So many women show affection hoping it will pull a man closer. But affection to a man who doesn't feel emotionally safe feels confusing. It feels like pressure. And in that space, he might back off. He might get quiet. He might even ghost. Not because he doesn't want you, but because he doesn't feel seen by you. The magic happens when you become the person he didn't even know he needed. When your presence tells him without words, you don't have to be anything other than who you are right now. That's when the walls come down. That's when the conversation goes deeper. That's when he starts showing up, not just physically, but emotionally. That's when affection becomes reciprocal, not something you chase, but something you both naturally give. Doesn't mean you become his therapist. Doesn't mean you carry his emotional weight. It simply means you show him through your consistency, your warmth, and your standards that this is a different space. A space where he can laugh without pretending, cry without shame, fail without feeling like he's being disqualified from your love. And yes, it takes patience